The last topic is to find alternative optimal solution. So if we solve the transportation problem, so this is what we have for the optimal solutions. That means Cleveland supply point will send 1,000 units to Boston, 4,000 units to Chicago. And one question we may have is that, is this the only optimal solution? Do we have other optimal solutions? So we will try to see if we can find any other optimal solutions. So here is the optimal solution we have. So some values of the decision variables are positive, but some of are 0. Okay. So we have the optimal cost. So if we want to find another optimal solution, we have to make sure that the new optimal or the alternative solution also has the objective function value of 39,500. So how do we find another solution? So we have to identify all the decision variables that are equal to 0. So here are all the 0 value decision variables from our previous optimization. So what we want to do is to maximize the sum of all those decision variables, and if the new objective function value of the problem is positive, then that means we find an alternative solution. So that means we find another optimal solution. Okay. So if we do that for this translation problem, as we said, we need to use the sum of the 0 value decision variables as the objective function, and we want to maximize that, and we keep all the constraints, and also we have to add one more constraint, which is the previous objective function. So this is a previous objective function. We have to let it equal the optimal value that we found from the last optimization. So if we can solve this optimization problem, and if we have a feasible solution, that means this constraint is satisfied. That means the original objective function is still equal to the optimal value, and we have another set of optimal solution. But we have to make sure this objective function has to be positive. That means not all of them are equal to 0. So we have another set of optimal solution. So if we do that, for this particular case, we find another set of optimal solution. So that means for this problem, for this transportation problem, we have more than one optimal solutions. Okay. So that's what we had. So there's some insights or some discussions from the alternative optimal solutions. But for the procedure of generating alternative optimal solution, we have a few steps. First one, of course, we need to solve the original problem. Then let's develop a new objective function. So we want to maximize that new objective function, and that new objective function is the sum of those 0 value decisions in the original problem. So the third step, we need to keep all the constraints, and we need to add a constraint that forces the original objective function to be equal to the optimal objective value. Then we solve the problem, and if the new objective function has positive values, that means we find an alternative optimal solution. Okay, I think that's the end of this chapter. For those videos, we don't need to submit any Excel files, but please play with the examples that I didn't cover. So for the general, let me go back, general programming and more examples, we have a few examples that are not covered. Please download the Excel files and take a look at how the modeling was done and play with those cases.